Triple H just made the biggest mistake of his entire career. You think you know what's coming next in WWE? Think again. What happened on SmackDown last Friday has completely changed the wrestling landscape forever, and if you're one of those fans sitting there thinking this is just another storyline twist, you're about to get a reality check that will make your head spin. Brock Lesnar, the man who conquered The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, the man who destroyed John Cena, the Beast incarnate himself, has done something so shocking, so unprecedented, that even the most hardcore wrestling fans are questioning everything they thought they knew about WWE's power structure. Seth Rollins' mysterious faction, The Vision, just got the most explosive addition in wrestling history, and this isn't some desperate attempt to boost ratings, this is a declaration of war against everything WWE management stands for. Paul Heyman's jaw hit the floor, Roman Reigns looked like he'd seen a ghost, and Triple H? He was backstage furious, throwing papers around his office like a man who just realized his entire empire is about to crumble. But here's what nobody is talking about, and this is where it gets really interesting: this whole thing was planned months ago. The signs were right there in front of us, and we all missed it. Remember when Lesnar walked out during that contract negotiation back in April? Remember when Seth Rollins made those cryptic comments about seeing the future of WWE? We thought it was just typical wrestling drama, but it was actually the first pieces of the most elaborate chess game WWE has ever seen. The backstory that changes everything. Let me paint you the real picture of what's been happening behind the scenes, because what you saw on television was just the tip of the iceberg. Sources close to WWE, and I'm talking about people with direct access to backstage information, have been telling a completely different story than what we've been fed by WWE's PR machine. For the past 8 months, Brock Lesnar has been in a constant power struggle with WWE management. Not about money, Lesnar makes more money in one appearance than most wrestlers make in a year, but about creative control. The Beast incarnate was sick and tired of being used as Triple H's personal weapon, being wheeled out whenever ratings dropped or whenever they needed to make someone look strong. Think about it, when was the last time you saw Brock Lesnar in a storyline that actually challenged him as a performer? When was the last time the Beast was allowed to show the incredible mic skills that made him a legitimate threat back in his original WWE run? Triple H has been using Lesnar as a glorified special attraction, and for someone with Lesnar's ego and competitive drive, that was eating him alive from the inside. But Seth Rollins? Seth saw something that nobody else in WWE was smart enough to see. While everyone else was treating Lesnar like a part-time mercenary, Rollins recognized that the Beast incarnate was actually the perfect foundation for something much bigger than anyone could imagine. The Vision wasn't just some random faction name that Seth pulled out of thin air, it's a philosophy. It's about wrestlers taking control of their own destinies instead of being puppets in Triple H's corporate machine. And who better to represent that philosophy than the one man in WWE who has never truly been controlled by management? The moment that changed everything last Friday on SmackDown, we witnessed what will go down as one of the most shocking moments in wrestling history. But here's what you didn't see: the 30 minutes of absolute chaos that happened backstage immediately after that segment aired. Picture this: Seth Rollins is in the ring, microphone in hand, talking about how the Vision is going to reshape WWE's future when suddenly, boom, Lesnar's music hits. The crowd goes absolutely nuclear because nobody, and I mean nobody, expected to see the Beast incarnate on a random SmackDown episode. Lesnar walks down that ramp with a look in his eyes that we haven't seen since his UFC days: pure, focused intensity. This wasn't the part-time Brock we've gotten used to seeing. This was the motivated Brock, the hungry Brock, the Brock that made Paul Heyman's career and struck fear into the hearts of everyone in that locker room. But here's where it gets really crazy: instead of F5ing Seth Rollins through the announce table like everyone expected, Lesnar extends his hand. The entire WWE universe was stunned into silence. You could hear a pin drop in that arena because nobody saw this coming. Seth looks at Lesnar's hand for what felt like an eternity, and in that moment, you could see the wheels turning in Rollins' head. This wasn't just about adding muscle to his faction, this was about making a statement that would reshape the entire WWE landscape. When Seth shook Brock's hand, the explosion of boos and cheers was so loud that it nearly blew the roof off the arena. But that handshake represented something much bigger than two wrestlers forming an alliance. It was the moment when WWE's power structure got turned completely upside down. The backstage explosion. What happened next is something WWE will never show you on television, but my sources were there, and what they witnessed was absolute chaos. The moment that segment ended, every single person backstage was in complete panic mode. Triple H came storming through the backstage area like a man possessed. He was screaming at producers, demanding to know how this happened without his approval. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets really juicy: this did have approval, just not from who you think. Nick Khan, WWE's president, had been having secret meetings with both Lesnar and Rollins for weeks. While Triple H was focused on his NXT projects and planning WrestleMania season, Khan was orchestrating the biggest power play in WWE's modern history. Why? Because the numbers don't lie. WWE's television ratings have been struggling, especially in the key 18 to 49 demographic that advertisers care about most. Khan knew that they needed something explosive to grab mainstream attention, and what's more explosive than the most dominant wrestler in WWE history joining forces with one of the most charismatic superstars of this generation? But Triple H felt betrayed. Sources tell me that he was on the phone with Stephanie McMahon for over an hour after SmackDown went off the air, and the conversation was so heated that people 3 offices away could hear him shouting, "Roman Reigns?" He was in complete shock. The Tribal Chief has been the centerpiece of WWE programming for years, but suddenly he's looking at a faction that could make his entire Bloodline storyline look like child's play. Insiders say Roman immediately called Paul Heyman, demanding to know if Heyman had any advanced knowledge of what was happening. And Paul Heyman? The special counsel was just as blindsided as everyone else. For the first time in decades, Heyman was completely out of the loop on a major Brock Lesnar storyline development. That's how secret this entire operation was. The master plan revealed, but wait, it gets even more insane. What we witnessed on SmackDown wasn't just a spontaneous decision, it was the culmination of the most elaborate long-term booking strategy WWE has attempted since the Montreal Screwjob. Going back to WrestleMania 39, there were already seeds being planted for this moment. Remember when Seth Rollins made those comments about evolution and seeing beyond the current landscape? We all thought he was just cutting a generic babyface promo, but he was actually laying the groundwork for the vision. And Brock Lesnar's sporadic appearances over the past year? Every single one of them was strategic. WWE wasn't just saving money on Lesnar's appearance fees, they were deliberately keeping him off television to make his eventual return with the vision even more impactful. Think about every major storyline from the past 12 months, and you'll start seeing the connections. Rollins' feud with CM Punk? That was about establishing Seth as someone willing to challenge WWE's established order. His comments about part-time wrestlers weren't shots at The Rock or John Cena, they were foreshadowing his alliance with the ultimate part-timer. The vision isn't just another faction, it's WWE's response to AEW's success with compelling, long-term storytelling. Triple H might be getting credit as the creative genius behind WWE's current renaissance, but this storyline has Nick Khan's fingerprints all over it. The numbers game. Let's talk about what this really means for WWE's future, because the implications are staggering. Within 24 hours of that SmackDown segment, WWE's social media engagement increased by over 400%. Twitter was completely flooded with reactions, TikTok videos analyzing the handshake went viral, and wrestling news websites crashed from the massive traffic surge. But more importantly, WWE's stock price jumped 8% in after-hours trading. Wall Street investors recognize that Lesnar joining the Vision isn't just a wrestling storyline, it's a business strategy that could revolutionize how WWE presents its programming. Television executives from Fox and USA Network were immediately on the phone with WWE, discussing how to maximize the mainstream media attention the story is going to generate. This isn't just about wrestling fans, this has the potential to break into mainstream pop culture in a way that WWE hasn't achieved since the Attitude Era. And the merchandise possibilities? WWE's retail partners are already scrambling to design Lesnar/Vision hybrid merchandise. Early projections suggest this could be one of the highest-selling wrestling storylines in terms of commercial products since the NWO. The locker room divided, but here's where things get really interesting, the WWE locker room is now completely divided. Sources tell me that there are wrestlers who are absolutely furious that they weren't brought into the Vision from the beginning, and others who are terrified about what this means for their own career trajectories. Cody Rhodes, who's been carrying WWE as the top babyface, reportedly had a closed-door meeting with Triple H immediately after SmackDown. While nobody knows exactly what was discussed, insiders say Cody was very concerned about how the Vision's formation affects his positioning as WWE champion. The entire women's division is buzzing with speculation about whether the Vision will expand to include female wrestlers. Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair have both made cryptic social media posts that could be interpreted as either support for or opposition to the Vision's philosophy. And then there's CM Punk, who's been noticeably silent about this entire development. Given his history with both Seth Rollins and his complicated relationship with WWE management, Punk's reaction to the Vision could be the most telling indicator of where the storyline goes next. The opposition forms, but Triple H isn't going down without a fight. Sources close to WWE management reveal that the game is already assembling his own response to the Vision's formation, and the wrestlers he's considering for this anti-Vision faction will blow your mind. Roman Reigns is obviously the centerpiece, but Triple H is also in talks with some surprising names. There are rumors that he's reached out to The Rock about making a return to help combat the Vision's influence. Imagine the People's Champion and the Tribal Chief joining forces to take down Lesnar and Rollins. But the most shocking potential addition to Triple H's faction? John Cena. The 16-time world champion has been very vocal about his loyalty to WWE's corporate structure, and insiders suggest he's been in preliminary discussions about cutting short his Hollywood schedule to return for the storyline. The Bloodline storyline that's been dominating WWE programming for years? That could become just one component of a much larger war between the Vision and WWE's establishment. Solo Sikoa, Jimmy USO, and the entire Samoan dynasty could find themselves as foot soldiers in Triple H's army. The future of WWE. This is where we need to talk about what the Vision's formation means for WWE's long-term future, because the implications extend far beyond just television programming. This storyline has the potential to fundamentally change how WWE operates as a business. If the Vision succeeds in capturing mainstream attention and driving significant revenue growth, it proves that WWE can still create culturally relevant storylines in the modern era. But if it fails, it could be seen as evidence that wrestling has permanently lost its ability to break into mainstream consciousness. The pressure on Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar is enormous. They're not just responsible for entertaining wrestling fans, they're carrying the weight of WWE's future relevance on their shoulders. Every promo, every match, every segment needs to justify the massive investment WWE has made in this storyline. And what about the other wrestling promotions? AEW's Tony Khan must be watching this development very carefully, because if WWE succeeds in recapturing mainstream attention, it could significantly impact AEW's growth trajectory. Tony Khan's entire business model has been based on being the alternative to WWE's corporate structure, but the Vision represents WWE's attempt to co-opt that rebellious energy. The technical wrestling revolution. Here's something that most fans haven't considered. The Vision's formation could represent a fundamental shift in how WWE presents in-ring competition. Brock Lesnar, despite his reputation as a part-timer, is still one of the most technically gifted wrestlers in the world. His amateur wrestling background combined with his MMA experience gives him a legitimate athletic credibility that most WWE wrestlers can't match. Seth Rollins, meanwhile, represents the absolute pinnacle of modern sports entertainment. His combination of athletic ability, character work, and promo skills makes him the perfect leader for a faction that's supposed to represent wrestling's future. Together, they could elevate WWE's in-ring product in ways we haven't seen since the technical wrestling renaissance of the early 2000s. Imagine Brock Lesnar in 20-minute technical wrestling matches instead of 5-minute squashes. Picture Seth Rollins having the creative freedom to develop storylines that actually challenge viewers intellectually. The Vision could represent WWE's evolution from sports entertainment back toward legitimate athletic competition. And in an era where fans are more educated about wrestling techniques and behind-the-scenes business than ever before, that evolution could be exactly what WWE needs to stay relevant. The global implications, but we need to zoom out even further and look at what this means for WWE's international expansion. The Vision storyline is being promoted heavily in WWE's key international markets, particularly in Europe and Asia, where both Lesnar and Rollins have massive fan followings. WWE's partnership with Netflix for their international streaming rights becomes even more valuable with a storyline of this magnitude. Netflix executives are already discussing how to maximize the Vision's global appeal through their platform's recommendation algorithms. In Japan, where Lesnar's NJPW history still generates significant interest, the Vision's formation is being covered by mainstream sports media. In the UK, where Seth Rollins has always been incredibly popular, wrestling publications are calling this the most significant WWE storyline development since the Monday Night Wars. This isn't just about American television ratings. The Vision has the potential to make WWE a truly global cultural phenomenon in ways that wrestling hasn't achieved since the peak of the Attitude Era. The ultimate question, so here's the ultimate question that every wrestling fan needs to be asking, is the Vision WWE's masterstroke that will secure their dominance for the next decade? Or is it a desperate attempt to recapture past glory that will ultimately expose how far wrestling has fallen from its cultural peak? The answer will determine not just WWE's future, but the future of professional wrestling as a mainstream entertainment form. If the Vision succeeds, it proves that wrestling still has the power to capture global attention and drive cultural conversations. If it fails, it might signal that wrestling's days as a mainstream entertainment option are numbered. Every wrestling fan has a stake in the Vision's success or failure. Because if WWE, the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, with unlimited resources and global reach, can't make a storyline featuring Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins work, what does that say about wrestling's future viability? The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and the entire wrestling world is watching. The Vision isn't just another storyline, it's wrestling's last, best hope for reclaiming its place in mainstream entertainment. The call to action, this is the moment where you, the wrestling fan, become part of the story. Your reaction, your engagement, your willingness to invest emotionally in the Vision's journey will directly impact whether this storyline succeeds or fails. WWE is watching social media metrics, television ratings, merchandise sales, and live event attendance more closely than ever before. Every comment, every share, every discussion about the Vision sends a message to WWE management about what wrestling fans actually want. Do you want more unpredictable, boundary-pushing storylines like The Vision? Or do you prefer the safe, predictable booking that WWE has relied on for years? Your engagement with this storyline is literally a vote for wrestling's future direction. The Vision represents everything that wrestling could be: unpredictable, emotionally engaging, culturally relevant, and absolutely unmissable. But it only succeeds if fans like you decide to make it succeed. So the question isn't whether The Vision will change WWE forever. The question is whether you're ready to be part of that change. Because this is bigger than Brock Lesnar, bigger than Seth Rollins, bigger than WWE itself. This is about the future of professional wrestling as an art form. The Vision is here, the revolution has begun, and there's no going back. Welcome to the future of WWE, whether you're ready or not.